There's a line on the ground that'll take you anywhere. If you want to go somewhere in particular, you gotta follow the right line. But there's a line on the ground most places, and we're gonna follow that line to whatever we might find, though it might not be just what we were expecting. There's just no point directing that line on the ground. If you let it, it just might take you anywhere.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Houston EV Hub, presented by Houston Electric Vehicle Association, here on KPFT 90.1 FM, kpft.org. You can listen live there or see all our shows, hear all our shows in the archives 60 days after they originally aired. So we encourage you all to call us at 713-526-5738. Push option 2 to talk. 1 if you want to donate. We'd appreciate that. And here's Colin with some announcements. Our producer, Colin Lowen.
Good morning. Hello, Houston. We have a lot of events coming up in April. This Saturday, April 12th, it's Batteries and Brews, a social gathering from noon to 3 at 8th Wonder Brewery, 2202 Dallas. 8th Wonder has a cannabis lineup, too, if the brews don't do it for you. At one of these social events, I got to drive a 59 Bug-Eyed Sprite EV conversion, a beautiful car. So if you never know what might show up at these events. Earth Month events, share your EV or just come check out some EVs. It's a chance to talk to an owner about living electric instead of a salesperson. April 19th, noon to 5 on Saturday, Discovery Green Earth Day. We have an EV petting zoo, as they call it. April 22nd, Tuesday, 11 to 1, is Sustainability Day at America's Tower on Allen Parkway. And April 26th, Saturday, IKEA Earth Day, 11 to 3, 7810 Katy Freeway. And you can find more information and details at the HoustonEVA.org. Connect with us there. We'll get you information. Space is limited, and you can find Drive Electric Earth Month events all over the country at driveelectricearthmonth.org.
All right. It's time for our segment called Count the Electric Cars. I was on a road trip myself this last weekend to Austin and back, some 320 miles total, and it gave me a good opportunity to count all the electric cars out there. So, if you're ready, here's the number. There were 40 or more electric cars out there, and I was involved in a electric car rally, which was not a race, more like a scavenger hunt. Figure out the clues, find the landmarks. It was a lot of fun. And a lot of cars charging along the way at convenient stops.
Did you win? Did you win the rally?
I did not win the rally. I was with the organizer, and we came in last place. But we had a nice meal with all the folks and got to meet new electric enthusiasts. But now, the subject of today's program is you can get there from here. It's all about electric vehicle road trips.
Get your motor running. Head out on the highway. Looking for adventure. And whatever comes our way. Yeah.
All right, Steppenwolf, Born to be Wild. Joining me today, my brother. That's not to confuse us with the car guys. We're not from Boston. Dr. Sam Lowy is with us. He recently did an over 1,220-mile road trip with his particular car. We're not going to get into brand names today because we're a non-commercial station, but we all have our preferences. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just great. So this is a Zoom, this is a remote caller, and we don't see each other, but we hear you just fine. So I want you to start off by telling us basically what your road trip was like, any detail you want to add, and Colin and I might jump in with questions or comments as you go. We got about 8 minutes, I'd say.
Oh, okay, David, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the program. I'm sure I could take up more than 8 minutes if you gave me a chance.
I'll
try to condense it. But we have a condo down in St. Pete, Florida. I live in Chattanooga, and over the last few years, we've taken many trips down there in our hybrid vehicle, and we go for one day. Generally it's a 10-hour trip using a regular hybrid car, and I have had my EV for several years now, but I've driven around town a lot. It's great. It's a round town car. But my idea was to eventually do a trip down to St. Pete and see how long that would take. I was waiting to get my Tesla converter for the Tesla charging network. Once I got that, I was ready to go. So it's a 610-mile trip, and my goal was to make it in one day. And being unfamiliar with long-distance charging, I usually charge at home on a level 2 charger. So I figured it would take me, a lot longer than 10 hours because I would explore the charging network. That was one of my main goals, and see how it went. So the first trip down, I did exactly that. I explored the charging network, got a feel for it, that sort of thing, and it ended up, I think I charged going down 6 times. It took me almost 14 and a half hours.
Wow.
Long day.
Was it
coming back?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was it frustrating?
The trip down actually went pretty smoothly. It was a nice trip down. No traffic tie-ups. I started out very early, so I got through Atlanta without a problem. And basically, it was fun exploring what was available out there. There are a lot. The route from Chattanooga to St. Pete, there's a lot of charging options, so that wasn't a problem. And I except for leaving Chattanooga at 100% charge off of my home charging network, a level 2, all my stops were to be at DC high-speed charging stops. So that was an interesting situation because with DC fast charging, I only charge up to 80%. As y'all are probably familiar, it slows down quite a bit after that.
Right. Well, when we talked, you said you like to look for a charger when you're down to about 30% of your available charge.
Yes, that's my comfort level at this point.
Okay, because
once I start under 40%, I start to get a little nervous.
Yeah, it's just like trying to beat the tank on a conventional car. But
right.
On my little trip to Austin, I took it down to, I had maybe 28 miles of range left by the time I got there, so that was much less than 30%. Would you consider, going a little further if you have the planning apps to tell you, what you can count on?
Once I got comfortable, with long distance driving, I would. The situation or the concern is you never quite know what you're going to run into. So on the trip back, I figured I could cut off a good amount of time because I was more familiar with the network, although I was still doing some some exploring. But it still took me 14 hours coming back because on the way back I ran into 2 long traffic tie-ups,
Right.
and 1 rainstorm.
On my trip, I ran into the hugest piece of equipment you can possibly imagine being moved down the highway, holding cars up for miles behind it, and written proudly on its side was, "Working toward a more sustainable Earth." So I was willing to wait for it, but I had to be creative and backtrack, go back around, come up on the freeway again, and there it was again. It had now caught up, so I was dodging this thing for miles. So there are all kinds of obstacles. Anything you want to chime in on what you've heard so far, Lowy?
Well,
Colin.
The thing that a lot of people hear, they're concerned about, well, so you're sitting in traffic for hours. Doesn't that use up your charge? And the answer is no, it doesn't. The slower you go, the more range you have. So I've been in situations where I headed to the airport get my daughter in the middle of a Houston rainstorm, and the traffic was horrible, and I'm concerned about my charge, but I ended up using, I think, 5 miles on what usually is a 20-mile there and back trip. But because I'm going so slow and stuck in traffic, there is very little consumption.
So pick it up and tell us more about your trip.
Right. So, I mean, that information is helpful when you're driving along, certainly, and you don't use much charge unless you're certainly going to use more if you're using your heating or air conditioning, which
right.
may be necessary.
And I've heard the heater uses much more power than the air conditioner.
Depending on the car, yeah. Some
Right.
cars have heat exchangers, they do better. Yeah.
And we all have seat heat somewhere in the car, usually wheel heat, or a blanket that you can use instead of running the heater.
Well, the heat seater's their best bet.
And I have these little towel wraps to put around your neck. You wet them and then stretch them out, and they actually keep you cooler. You wrap them around your wrist or around your neck so you can save that battery power for the air conditioning. So what about the trip back? Was it any better?
Well, again, it was another 14-hour trip. Again, I ran into the traffic tie-ups and the rain. One thing that happened on the trip back with the traffic tie-ups is that it kind of forced me off into an unscheduled exit because, well, I had to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Okay. So I ended up unscheduled exit, and then I was going to charge up when I made that stop. Turned out that the nearest charging station from there was 5 miles away.
Right.
So even though, scheduled stops, the charging stations were pretty convenient for the most part, you do have to be careful. Sometimes the charging stations are not real close. So you're ending up using up time and miles finding the stations and then getting back to the highway.
Well, on my trip, I made the biggest mistake you can make, or so it seemed. About 100 miles into my trip, I realized I hadn't brought my charging cable with me. Well, this was not that big a deal because with this charging cable, it just goes on 110 or a level 2 charge if you can find it. But I was thinking of it just as a backup. And it made me think creatively because I'd been to Austin before with our car, and I remembered there were charging stations in the library parking garage. I wound up parked there for 18 hours, got a full charge, paid $41 to park there, but the charge only cost me about $5.14. Imagine a tank of gas. And it worked out. So basically, when you feel like I'm not going to make it, maybe there are other ways that we can think about that help with that. So it really turned into a great trip. I even got to ride in an autonomous taxi, which was beautiful. That's all I'm going to say. You got to try that. So we're going to wrap up, but what else would you want to tell us about your trip? Getting home, was that much better than going out?
Well, it was, again, it was a long day. The drive, the car drove beautifully, so it was a comfortable drive. And it was good. I think the bottom line for me on this is if I want to make a long trip like this in one day, going down for 1 week's time, which is what I did, may not be the best idea. If I were going to go down for a longer period of time, certainly would work. And overall, it's doable. It's just a long day for that distance.
Well, if it were me, and I know you want to get there, but I'm trying to figure out if there's a place I could stop for the night that has chargers, and that has helped us a great deal. So on electric road trips, you have to be a little inventive and a little bit flexible, but there are ways to do it either way. So thanks so much, Sam. This is a great part. I hope you'll keep listening to the end of the program on kpft.org. We're going to have other guests talking about their cross-country road trips. I'll see you later.
Very welcome. Thanks, David.
All right. Thanks. So now it's time for our weekly installment. Is Marlo there? Hello. Playing the role of Zap in our little radio drama, and I'll be playing Zip in our weekly installment of Fun with Zip and Zap. This week's subject is On the Electric Road with Zip and Zap. This has been a great trip so far, Zap. Oh, but look, we're low on charge. We're never going to make it to the Grand Canyon now. I don't even see a place to charge around here. We may have to call a tow truck.
Zip, zip, zip. Next to the word worry in the dictionary, they should have your picture. Don't you think I planned for this? There are a lot of apps that can tell an EV driver where to charge on a long trip. Look, there's a charger now.
Great. I should have known you'd have this under control. But wait, this charger won't fit our car. Oh, gosh. Now what will we do?
Do you see this device I'm holding? It's called an adapter. It'll fit the charging cable, and then we can attach it to our car. Not really a problem. We'll be on our way in a little while. Meanwhile, let's take a break in this convenience store, have a snack, and relax for a while.
Sounds good to me. I shouldn't have doubted you, Zap. Traveling electrically with you is a breeze and a fun adventure.
As I like to say, a little planning is all it takes, but sometimes too much gives you headaches.
Too true. But let's go. I'm hungry. I think I'll have the environmentally responsible burger. Yum. Okay. Well, thank you, Santa. I hope you enjoyed that. Please call us at 713-526-5738. Push 2 and talk to us. Ask questions, comment, laugh, do what you want. Now we're going to turn to another guest. And we're going to be joined by Brian Sherwood right after this.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. And I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Going places that I've never been.
Hello, Brian. Are you there?
I am. Good morning.
Yay. Brian Sherwood. I have your last name right, don't I?
You do.
Brian and I met in an unusual job. Unusual for me because I usually don't have jobs. But this was driving our electric cars, wrapped for advertising a technology company. And 10 of us electric cars were driving round and round in the downtown area as a train of cars advertising the same thing for 3 days, something like that. A total of 21 hours, going an average of 4 miles per hour. How did you and Allison drove her own car, how did you all like that?
It didn't bother me at all. I find it kind of just fun. I think Allison may have been a little less enthused.
Yeah, and they actually paid us. That was the good part, and it was a hefty fee.
That's why she did it for sure.
Yeah, and then you went on and did it again in Dallas. So
That's correct.
that's fantastic. They paid you extra for driving up to Dallas. Very generous, but sometimes they're advertising beer and cigars, and I don't particularly want to promote those, but other people say, well, don't drink the beer, don't smoke the cigars, just take the money. Anyway, tell us about your cross-country road trip. Very ambitious trip you told me about, and sounds like you didn't have too many problems.
No, not at all. So last summer, we decided to take a family trip up to New York. And
starting out where? Where did you?
I'm sorry?
Where did you start from?
Oh, starting from Houston.
Okay.
To New York, and then from New York over to Indiana to visit family, and then back to Houston. All in about 4,000 miles round trip.
Wow. So, was it a challenge? How did you handle all that?
Actually, not too bad. Prior to leaving for the trip, I had discovered an app that allows you to plan your trip. It lines out, it knows the car you have, the range that it has, and all of that, and lines it out for here, stop here, stop here, stop here, charge for this long. So basically, you have the plan.
So there are a lot of apps like that. There's a lot of things you can just search without an app, and you can find your way, what's working, what's occupied. Go ahead.
Well, and that would be really the only two hiccups that we had. Really were my fault for not completely understanding how the app I used worked. And if I had known that, I would have had a second app to check, the viability of those chargers. But basically, one hiccup was we got to a charger in Louisiana, and lo and behold, there were no chargers there. Upon checking with the Electrify America, which was the company that owned that charger, checking their app, it showed that 2 days prior they'd pulled them all to be upgraded and had not finished the upgrade. So we had to go about 1.5 miles further out to the next closest charger, charge there, and then on our way again.
Well, this was a very long trip. So you stayed overnight in places where you could charge?
Yes. In fact, when we planned out our trip, we chose hotels that had EV charging. And for the most part, it was included with the hotel stay. But there were a couple where that was still an extra charge. But the fact that you can charge, wake up, and be 100% ready to go again the next morning is really what makes the trip doable.
Yeah. Well, anything fun or interesting or distressing you want to relate in a trip? I mean, any car trip is a bit of an adventure. What with traffic?
Yeah.
I mean, just getting to the studio today, somebody could have rammed us on the freeway. Fortunately, our electric car had the power to evade them. But what did you encounter that was fun or that stood out on your long trip?
Well, I know we're not getting into the make and model of the cars.
Right.
One of the features of the car that we have is a semi-autonomous driving.
Oh, yeah.
And it really, I drove the entire trip 100%. Everybody else in the car was a passenger the entire time. In a gas car, I find it to be very exhausting to drive that far all in one go. But with the car doing most of the work, it really was relaxing and easy. Like I say, everything is so quiet, smooth. No, the drone of an engine isn't wearing on you like it does in a gas vehicle.
Exactly. Though I've heard of some cars that will add in the sound of a V8 engine if you want it. I don't know why, and some figure out ways to make that noise externally. So I'm a little worried about that. But go ahead.
Each their own, I would say, on that. But
so
for me,
on your ride home, was that easier than the ride out? How did the return trip go?
Easier in the sense that I had more confidence. This was our first road trip in an EV, and like I told my wife when we set out, I said one of two things is going to happen: we're either going to love it or we're going to hate it. And we ended up. I really loved it. On the way back, the only hiccup was when we were in Tennessee, both in Nashville and in Memphis. the only high-speed chargers there, half of them were offline.
Yeah,
so we had to
great.
wait.
Well, thanks so much for visiting with us. Want to keep up with your adventures on other shows. Maybe you have you in the studio. And hello to Allison. Hope everything goes well today.
Thank you, sir.
See you later. So this has been Houston EV Hub, presented by Houston Electric Vehicle Association here on KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, kpft.org to listen live or listen to our archives. Go to the archives. You can push choose show and then hunt for EV Hub. You'll find us for 60 days after the broadcast. Thanks very much.
And find us at houstoneva.org.
That's going to be it for now. See you next time. Enjoy the adventure of driving whatever you drive.
Follow the right line, but there's a line on the ground most places, and we're gonna follow that line to whatever we might find, though it might not be just what we were expecting. There's just no point directing that line on the ground. If you let it, it just might take you anywhere.